But the Afrocentrists are trying to say that the entire civilization of Egypt is based on, black culture, and they always use Tutankhamun as their main example of this, and yet they've now discovered that his DNA, it was leaked, by the way, this was not official, it became official after it was leaked, is Western. What I'm doing is just giving you examples of that in this day and age that we're living, we're finding so many revelations, and they have to be covered. Some require only a couple of posts, and people can, read it or not read it. Other things like this Disciples of the Mysterium question, I think, cuts across vast areas of human knowledge. It helps to refute the Marxes and the Hegels, the world controllers and their little jive of their Masonic New World Order. You've got the tools now. You can refute scientifically and ideologically the entire premise of these globalists when you have the philosophy. I've always thought it was very important to have. And lo and behold, it turns out that people who've checked out this work think it's very valuable too. So we went to do the DVD on it.
For what it's worth, I think I took a giant step forward in my understanding, if you like, when I started reading philosophy. I didn't realise just how central it was to this whole thing. I always perceived it as being highbrow, let's say, not really relevant to the real world. My God, how wrong was I?
That's because the way it's been presented again, it's been purposely presented as some elitist Star Trek, wearing our togas up on Mount Olympus, to, again, totally bamboozle the hell out of people and not give them the salient facts, which are very, very pertinent. Half the words we use in the world come from these philosophical thinkers and writers. Certainly the ideas that we have, sociology is based on it, psychology is based on it. Without philosophy, you don't have a lot of things. You don't have the subject of sociology. How can you study the psychology of groups who work together in societies if you don't already know about the philosophical precepts that would galvanize people and build civilizations? This is the undergirding teachings. Now, we will find these anecdotes in great movies. People accept this. You find it in certain in great music. You know that it's the bedrock of all civilization, but the man in the street could care less about it. Well, he's going to have to start caring about it, because this is where the answers are. They're not to be found waiting for Big Brother or the teacher in the high school to hand it over to you, because even those teachers who would like to do that and try it, well, they're going to be removed, as has been the case. Anybody who tries to speak about the truth about the fossil record, you see, like Professor Thompson and Richard Milton and these people that I refer to a lot, they are removed. They are assassinated professionally so that their words never get across.
Exactly. And while you mentioned the DNA issue with King Tut, which we'll go into questions later on from our listeners, but there was one that was relevant to that one, so we'll give it now, which was, do you think that would help confirm further the Atlantis information that it was in the Atlantic region where obviously migration east from there occurred?
Yes, once you put it the way you've done, which is a brilliant way to look, yes it does. If you center your mind xenophobically on Egypt, like we've been trained to do, this place was disconnected from this, these people had no connection with them, well then no. But the moment that you understand that thesis, that yes, the original movement, the first waves of what remained of the civilization after these cataclysms began in the West, and that's like a no-brainer when you think about it. Atlantis was positioned in the Atlantic region, and then when all of these cataclysms took place, in whatever way we are told that they did, land bridges are known to have existed in the British Isles as long ago as 3,000 years BC, which is not a long time ago.
Exactly.
There's even now recent discoveries from the top scientists taking their ships out there that have discovered these land bridges. They've been filmed. They've been photographed from satellite. They absolutely non-negotiably existed. That alone, just that alone, refutes umpteen lies of geology and anthropology that has made it appear to us that there's no connections between the French Celts and the British Celts and the Scots and all the rest of it. Lies upon lies upon lies. We know they were all one big homogeneous family now if these land bridges existed. But coming more to your point, absolutely. If men got so far as Mesopotamia, we know it because we have images, thousands upon thousands of years old. There's Mesopotamian and Libyan images of white men with beards, dating from the time before there was even a Sahara Desert. I've got the information. It's in the books. That means that there's actual images of white men in Libya and in Mesopotamia and, of course, in Egypt before there was even desert in those places. So there is a no-brainer that those people went to these places. Now, they say, all right, Michael, you keep saying there's no African pharaohs. I have never said that because, as a matter of fact, of course, inbreeding took place. There are many pharaohs and the mothers and wives of these pharaohs that absolutely were African-looking. And, of course, but the thing is that you could still be married and be second or even third generation mixed.
Yeah.
But that doesn't stop you being of white ancestry from the West. There's dark-skinned people like myself, as a matter of fact, who are Caucasians. My fathers were Nordic, but I have dark skin. So the thing is that you can have generations of people all over the world. In fact, this even goes to the heart of the anthropological lie, which is talking about that the ancestors of Homo sapien came from Africa. This is often put before us spuriously as a proof of the black origins of everything, of civilization. Yes. Not necessarily. Africa is a landmass. Africa is a country. Black people is a different thing. That's race. Of course, you can be the homeland of nobody can argue that the homeland of mankind may in fact have been Africa. That doesn't mean that the people who lived there at that time were black-skinned.
No,
they could have been purple for all we know.
We already know that the climate all over the world's been radically different.
There you go.
Just depending on what period of time you happen to choose. So the whole Lucy theory, the out of Africa theory, is only based on the fact that supposedly the oldest human remains are the Lucy skeleton from there. That only proves that they're where the oldest remains we have.
That's right. But here's the interesting thing. Even if you don't go there, what you're saying is perfectly correct. But say you don't even go there, and you admit, because the landmass of Africa, which is just a landmass like any other, was the origin. Okay, this region on the planet Earth was the location in which the first DNA has been discovered, etc., etc., etc. It is a world away. See, what we have to understand is that two completely dissimilar theories have been purposely and deliberately fused together by people who have an agenda. And we need to be able to read between the lines and become very detective-like. This is the message I continually give to my viewers and listeners, that you have to discover where the welding has been done, where the stitching is between unlikely postulates, unlikely theorems, and hypotheses that have been forced together by people who know full well that they shouldn't be put together. In the same way we were anecdotally talking about Tutankhamun. Well, it's the same thing with this African origins of mankind. What does it matter if the landmass of Africa is where the earliest remains of mankind are discovered? That is not even remotely connected to the fact that those ancestors were black. As I say, they could have been purple, white, yellow, could have been anything. But this is how these scientific people manipulate these things, then use their media henchmen, use their media contacts to further skew these things together, and then by the time it reaches the populace, they're talking in these ridiculous terms on which you cannot jackhammer them out. You could never even, crowbar it out of their brain because the media has done its work,
That's it.
Yeah, it becomes received wisdom, and nobody ever questions whether the scientist behind it's even still in fashion. The whole belief systems are based on assumptions like the carbon dating and whatnot. Entire theories are based on nothing more than a specific date. I know through reading numerous academic texts that's exactly what happens. There's entire reputations hang on a theory proposed on nothing more than a false radiocarbon date, as it turns out. The whole thing's shouldn't be treated with anything like religious zeal, if you like. It all only what they know at this minute, even though they won't admit it.
And the most intriguing thing follows on from what you're saying is that, say, without the interference of any radical or alternative theory impinging upon the science world, it is a simple fact that both in cosmology, in astrophysics, in anthropology, they themselves, including the Darwinians, by the way, have to roll over their own theories every 5 to 10 years, sometimes massively so. This never reaches the public, is what I mean, although most people who study science will know this. But without any interference from any outside group, their own theories are buried, and then restored and presented to us as if nothing has ever happened.
That's it.
And then there's fallout scientists who just realize this, that they're so flaky. This is especially the case for anthropology and their discoveries. And therefore, the average alternative researcher has a devil of a time to be buying these books and keeping up to date with these changes, in just even the sciences I've been speaking about, to monitor this. Because in astrophysics, just like I said, now what are they going to do with this? I'm very interested to see how they bury this thing about the sun and this new particle and its impact on the whole carbon dating thing. I got a feeling that news report will be taken down. I think you're not probably going to hear of it again. This is my fear, because the establishment cannot afford to face the fact that if this fluctuations of the sun do in fact radically change the way that the carbon dating process takes place. Remember, it's them admitting it. It's not from outside. They have discovered. It's a new discovery from Stanford University and one other university. Well, look, they're suddenly going to realize that means that the entire chronology of artifacts is going to be blown wide open, meaning that the Velikovskys, the Cummins-Beaumonts, all of these people who screamed as loud as they could that, look, you cannot go into a tomb in Saqqara, look at a granite sarcophagus that cannot be replicated today even with the most sophisticated tools, then turn around, pick up a piece of pottery that just happens to have been thrown down there by like some Coke can by some ancient guy, date it, and say that piece of broken pottery, right, like some piss pot that somebody, went over there, and date that piss pot and say that is now proof of this age of the sarcophagus. Like you say, this is what has been put before us, not only in the Pyramid of Egypt, but in Saqqara and all over the place, from Baalbek to Timbuktu. They'll date a piece of broken crockery, pottery, and tell you this now dates the actual main edifice, the main, artifact that is actually there, which of course is the most ridiculous concept imaginable.
Exactly. But it's portrayed in the media as, this is scientific truth.
Right. Say you bust, a cop goes into a guy's house. He's lying dead. He's been shot with one of them pirates' muskets that used to stand in his collection. Yeah. You take the musket away, right? You date it, the pistol, and you go, well, we certainly know when this guy died. It was 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's at least that fallacious, isn't it? If not downright sinister when you actually look into the way received knowledge is created.
Yeah. And you know what this is? The mind control that people like myself are trying to explain. It is quite obvious when you look at the facts, but people can't look at it. They're staring and they're under hypnagogic. You asked one of the things I've been doing. Recently in June, I did a conspiracy con, and we couldn't get into it with anything like the detail I wanted to, but I tried to get into this whole thing of auto-hypnotism. It's been my study for years and years and years. I spoke on mind control a lot, but this, there it is. Stare at it. But they can't see it because it's just outside the parameters. And they have the big brother, big daddy with a stick saying, you will believe what we tell you. You are under the spell. You are under the hex. And that goes for people walking in shopping malls. It goes for the way people watch television. It is the way, and it goes much more importantly, for the way people believe what they think, their ideas of reality. And as we talked earlier, there is absolutely no way of ungluing people unless you go into psychology and philosophy to present them with inarguable facts, at least what this world allows us to have as inarguable facts, to try and show them that their ideas of reality are not correct. You have to go into the deepest areas of the esoteric tradition in order to present people with the facts that may, in fact, wake them up. And there's no even guarantee it will. But, shouting and beating them over the head isn't going to work. You've got to show them how the mind itself works in some dire hope that by seeing this, it might recall an ancestral intelligence out of people to say, wow, yeah, I wake up. Oh, of course. What was I thinking? The moon is not the sun at night. Black is not white.
It's funny you should jump into this subject of something I was wanting to get into later on as well. But when you talk earlier, you mentioned obviously doing the videos rather than the books. Now, it's a fact. We can all admit that if all of this information that we study and we take in right now to learn, that to get closer to the truth from our past, if it was all written, and if everyone simply had to read books, in this day and age, it's not going to happen because people are so addicted to pretty lights and flashing images, and it's a problem that I wanted to bring up with you as well, which is more the so-called truth movement could be seen as like the new counterculture. It's like